Okay, we're live.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of EduWiki Live. My name is Sailesh Patnaik. I'm a program officer with the education team at the Wikimedia Foundation. I'm very excited to be here today with our wonderful speakers and moderators for today to celebrate one of the important events for this week, which is the Global Media and Information Literacy Week. We have our EduWiki Live theme for today on Wikimedia and libraries, as the speakers will introduce us like how academia and libraries can work together using Wikipedia and its sister projects in education institutions. I have two wonderful moderators for today. They're going to introduce themselves as well as the speakers. I'm going to pass the mic to Bukola.
Hi, welcome to EduWiki Live. My name is Bukola James, and I'm a certified trainer of the Reading Wikipedia in the Classroom and the fan club president for Fire State University. Today, I'm so happy that I would be moderating some very distinguished speakers for this EduWiki Live. Thank you so much.
Clara?
Okay. Yes, so thank you, Bukola, and thank you, Sailesh, for inviting me. And I'm also happy to be here. I'm Clara from Wikimedia Polska, Wikimedia Poland, and I'm the specialist on education there. I'm developing a Wiki School program in Poland, introducing Wikipedia and its sister projects to the schools on different levels and also universities, and doing many other things, for example, around ethnography and Wikipedia. So that's all. Thank you. And back to Sailesh.
Thanks, Clara. Bukola, do you want to introduce our speakers?
Okay, so now we have a very distinguished speaker for today's EduWiki Live, and it's no other person than Laurie Bridges. And Laurie Bridge is an instructor and outreach librarian at Oregon State University. Although she has been a librarian for almost 20 years, it's only within the past 5 that she has incorporated Wikipedia into her teaching method. Now, every year, she co-hosts a Wikipedia editathon, collaborates with OSU professors to implement their Wikipedia assignment, and co-teaches 2-credit course titled Wikipedia and Information Equity. Join me as I welcome Laurie Bridge with a virtual applause.
Thank you, Bukola.
Yeah.
I am going to share my screen, and here's the slideshow. Can everyone see it?
A Wikipedia assignment and co-teaches 2-credit course titled Wikipedia and Information Equity. Join me as I welcome Laurie Bridge with a virtual applause.
Thank you. Okay. So I am going to talk today quickly about my journey into Wikipedia and what librarians are doing and what the future may hold. So I am a librarian at Oregon State University. We are a public university, and I put a little orange dot there so you can see exactly where I am this morning. I am glad to be here with the group and also with Alice, who I recently met in person for the first time. So I'll talk about that as well.
Laurie, before
Yes.
we get started with the presentation, maybe we can also give an introduction to Alice.
Alice, if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, yes, Clara is going to introduce Alice.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Clara.
Yes, of course. There will be the second speaker after Laurie will be Alice Kibombo. She is a practicing librarian and Wikimedian from Uganda, and she was also Wikimedian in residence with African Library and Information Association and institutions. And there, Alice has been active in the curriculum development and teaching librarians how they can engage in the development and use of resources that aid access to information through Wikipedia and its sister projects. And she's also interested in projects like Wikidata and Wikisource, that there are like intersection between libraries, education, and the rest of Wikimedia world. So we're also looking forward to your presentation after Laurie. Okay, back to Laurie.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about my journey with Wikipedia, how I engaged with the Wikimedia movement, and then university libraries and Wikipedia in the future. So I want to talk a little bit about my journey, because if there's one thing I enjoy, it's hearing other folks' stories about their engagement with Wikipedia and how they came to work with the projects. So how did I get here? The first part of my story, it has to do with my son, who is in the upper right-hand corner. And when he was in 3rd grade, we were talking at the dinner table, and he started talking about an assignment that he was very excited about. And that assignment had to do with frogs. And so he was 8 or 9, and he is doing an assignment about frogs. Every student in the classroom has to research and write about frogs. They pick one in the world, and then they give a presentation at the end. He was very excited about this assignment, so I asked him what he was using to do his research, and he said Wikipedia. And that really got my attention, that a elementary school teacher would be using Wikipedia in the classroom. So at that point, I started thinking about the benefits of using Wikipedia in education, and that if students are using it at a young age, maybe I should become more aware of the database, of Wikipedia, because I spend a lot of time learning about the databases that we have at the university. So as any good librarian would do, my first step was a literature review. So I started reading everything I could from librarians and their engagement with Wikipedia to teach information literacy. And I want to stress that Wikipedia and Wikimedia, they are an enormous metropolis type of city is the way I think of it. And I know one neighborhood now very well, and that neighborhood is information literacy and Wikipedia. So I started looking into that, and there was kind of a piece missing. There were a few case studies, but I wanted more examples of exactly what librarians were doing. In my literature review process, I ran across some articles by Jake Orlowitz, and his writing about libraries and Wikipedia was very inspiring. And then I went to IFLA, which is the International Federated Library Associations and Institutions, and I heard Andrew Lee speak. And he really focuses on Wikidata, but his presentation was quite inspiring. And so that motivated me even more. So my next step was to, as many librarians will do, was to host an edit-a-thon. And as I spoke with others, I was told you should partner with AfroCrowd. So AfroCrowd is a nonprofit, and they work specifically to get information about people of the African diaspora onto Wikipedia. And so we partnered with AfroCrowd, and through a series of connections, we also worked with FUNAB, which is in Nigeria. So they also had an edit-a-thon on the same day, their librarians. And it was a great success. And these are the folks that were participating in that edit-a-thon in our library. And then my next step, which I do have a subsequent article about, so I put a link here, is a class that I decided I would teach. So there's an experimental way we can teach classes at my university and propose them. So I proposed a class almost 4 years ago. And then I knew that if I had to teach a class, then I would have to learn everything there was to know so that I could teach the students. So I knew this was a great way for me to learn even more about Wikipedia. So those were the main things that I did. And then from there, I want to talk about how I got involved with the larger Wikimedia movement, because it might tell you a little bit about how librarians engage beyond the projects that they're doing in their local institutions. And so if you don't know, the Wikimedia movement is just a way to describe the totality of people, activities, values, and those who revolve around Wikimedia sites and projects. So in 2019, I got a scholarship to attend a Wikimedia plus Education conference. I didn't even know there were conferences, so I was surprised. I applied for it, and then I was again surprised when I got a scholarship. But that really, I met Salish at the conference, and it really also again inspired me because of the younger people involved with the Wikimedia movement, tying me back again to my own child, thinking about him and what he was learning in school about Wikipedia. And more recently, I joined the Wikimedia Foundation Regional Grants Committee. That is well, I shouldn't say joined, it is a process. You have to apply, you get interviewed, and then a small team gathers twice a year to review all the grants. For my group is Canada and the United States, and we make decisions from small grants to much larger grants. And it's quite a process. I've learned a lot about the Wikimedia Foundation as a result. And I've also learned a lot about grants because it's not something I've ever engaged with extensively. So I have more skills now related to acquiring grants beyond the Wikimedia Foundation for my library. And then most recently, I worked with a core group, including Alice, and we put together the first Wikimedia plus Libraries convention, and that was in Maynooth, Ireland, and it happened this past summer. It was amazing. Here we have a picture of 70 folks, 70 plus, who attended. It was 2 full days with folks from libraries, library adjacent organizations, and then also some folks from the Wikimedia Foundation. And we had workshops. One librarian is working on creating a Wikimedia manifesto. We talked about Wikidata, Wikibase, and we connected. The biggest benefit for me is connecting with other librarians doing this work so that I can share what I've done and I can also learn from them. And then I won't go into this in depth, but one way in the US that many academic librarians engage with the larger audience is through publishing. I am required in my position to publish. And so in the past 5 years, I have published numerous things related to the Wikipedia work and learning about Wikipedia. So now I want to jump into a project about libraries, specifically academic libraries and Wikipedia. And as I mentioned earlier, when I was beginning my work, I really wanted more case studies about what libraries are doing with Wikimedia. And so I then decided maybe the best way forward would be to create an edited book about that topic. And so I got 2 of my colleagues together here in the US, Ray Pun and Roberto Arteaga, and we did a call for proposals. We received 60 chapter proposals, but we had the budget for a 20 chapter book that is completely OA. And so now I just want to talk maybe for 1 minute about 4 of the chapters, 1 minute each. So the book was split into 4 sections and published last year. And in section 1, we have practical applications in the classroom. In section 2, practical applications outside the classroom. Section 3 is Wikimedians in residence. And then section 4 was Wikipedia sister projects. And I should add, the book has a strong focus on information literacy because that is really the area that myself and the 2 other editors work in. And so first, I'm just going to go over 1 chapter in each section and just draw your attention to the various topics covered in the book. So in chapter 3 is a wonderful summary of work being done at Maastricht University in the Netherlands, specifically in their special collections. And they talk about 3 separate projects that they work on with students, getting their materials into Wikipedia. So for example, one of the projects involves getting individual books from their special collections into Wikipedia. So each student will select a book, and then they will work to learn about they will work to learn about the process of getting an article about a book into Wikipedia, and then they will work on that article and then publish it to Wikipedia. Chapter 7 is by a librarian at McGill University in Canada, and that chapter details his process on kind of assessing and figuring out how LGBTQ information from Quebec, which is a province in Canada, is represented on French Wikipedia. And so that is something librarians could do if they're interested in a specific area, kind of follow along in his steps to see how different and marginalized groups are represented on Wikipedia, maybe in certain areas or countries. And he found that LGBTQ information about Quebec, folks from Quebec, is underrepresented. And interestingly, he found out there were more articles about LGBTQ people and topics in the US than in Quebec in French Wikipedia. So then he talked about his work with a editathon to fill in that particular gap. Then chapter 13 is by a well-known Wikipedian who is at the University of Edinburgh. And he specifically talks about his team's efforts to improve women representation in Wikipedia and Wikidata. And I first became aware of his project when I saw the amazing Witches of Scotland map that he and his team have created that details the over 3,000 women who were accused of witchcraft in Scotland. And you can use this map that was powered by Wikidata to find out more about each of the individual women. And then finally, I'll just chat about an article done by some Wikimedians in Brazil. And they talk about moving a journal and the information about articles in that journal into Wikidata, and how to do it simply using Zotero, Google Sheets, and Wikidata. And so they outline step by step the process for moving that information into Wikidata. So that's just 4 chapters in the book, and I strongly encourage you to take a look because it is open access, so you can get it anywhere at any time. And now I want to just talk quickly about what I think the future may hold for Wikipedia and librarians. So of course, doing the Wikimedia and Libraries Convention 2022, I hope that there is a Wikimedia Libraries Convention 2023. It is a grant-funded event, and it is powered by volunteers who do the coordination. So there currently is a new core committee working toward having an event in 2023. But of course, they have to put together a grant application and go through that process. The Wikimedia Foundation is hiring a senior program officer libraries. And so I'm very excited to see that, because this person will liaison specifically with libraries and work to coordinate all the many libraries and their activities across the globe. And I think that's just very exciting, because if there's one thing I love about librarianship, it's that there are librarians everywhere, and learning from one another is one of my favorite things within librarianship. And then finally, I want to talk about libraries and marginalized knowledge. Often libraries contain a lot of print materials that are not yet on the web. So librarians and libraries have a role to play with getting that information online in spaces that are open, like Wikipedia and Wikidata. But also there's knowledge that is not represented in print, like oral knowledge. And there are efforts currently, specifically in Nigeria, to get oral knowledge onto Wikipedia. So I think libraries could partner more and work with these separate organizations. And so I just want to close out with that, and we'll go over to Alice, and then I think we'll have time for questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe I will say that, yes, we will have time for the question later. So you can, I think you can ask also on the YouTube these questions, and Silas will see them, or Emerald. Okay, so now Alice, please. Can you unmute yourself, Alice?
Yo, my default behavior is mute. I hope my mic is working. Let me check. Yo, to speak after Laurie is a very hard paper. I don't know who took whose answers, but anyway, I'll try my best. Most of the things I would have said, Laurie has mentioned. So I'm glad to see that we think the same way. So in some areas, I will flesh it out, and in some others, I'll just give you the bare bones. My presentation isn't going to dwell so much on specifics, but generalizations. Let me see if I can get my stuff in order. There we go. So first of all, to the organizers, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share about something that I won't say it's near to my heart, but it is something that has become very core to my existence. I keep saying that very many people actually know me more as a Wikimedian than a librarian. Then they get very confused when they know that there are things like Wikibrarians, but I will deal with that later. Like I mentioned, I won't go into specifics. I'll go into generalizations and also give illustrations where they are available. So I will be talking about Wikipedia, libraries, and education. Where is the intersection with that? What are some of the, I wouldn't call them interventions, but what are some of the initiatives that have been undertaken both by individuals within the library community as well as within the Wikimedia Foundation? Where was the middle ground with in that? Then I will also touch briefly on the opportunities available at the intersection of all this, as well as the challenges, and then I'll try and give I'll try and illustrate as much as I can. But and just to take you back, I'm going to tell you things that you already know, but things that cannot be stressed enough, because very many times people keep asking, what is the relationship between Wikipedia, some call it Wikimedia. What's the relationship between, okay, let's call it for this purpose, Wikimedia and libraries and education? One thing that you really need to know about is all these communities, yeah? So the Wikimedia Foundation is a global movement, and this global movement has a goal. I can't state it verbatim, but the goal is to provide and publish free, open access content so that you and me are able to access it, break down the barriers. And the barriers are very many. They could be technical, they could be socio-economic, they could be geopolitical, but there's so many barriers to information. And how does it do that? It does that through at least 13 projects that cater to the different facets of information, as well as through a decentralized process. And I will expound more on that later, because that is very central to the story. Through a decentralized process, they do their work through individuals. They could do it through partnerships. They could use user groups. They could use chapters. And then in comes education, just right here. Well, I used that logo for the Wikipedia and education user group, but what part does information play? Sorry, what part does education play in all this? The thing with education is it it prompts your curiosity, and your curiosity leads you, sets you upon a search for knowledge. Not anything vision quest, but something like basically a search for knowledge. And where do libraries come in then? You see, libraries, unlike some of our information cousins, we are at work when we are giving out information, yeah? So as libraries, we could think we are intermediaries. Some people say we are not frontliners. Some say we are background workers, but we are only at work when we are giving you the information. And which kind of information is this? It could be information about how to use resources, how to discover resources, how to, repackage information to suit your needs. And how are we able to do that? Through education. And very many times when we get involved with the Wikimedia Foundation's projects, we are able to extend that part of our work through the projects. So if you want encyclopedic information, Wikipedia is there for you. If you want information that is related to structured data, Wikidata is there for you. You want something to do with news or with travel or with quotes, things that are misattributed, then there is a Wikimedia project that is going to be of help to you. But chances are you're not going to just stumble on it unless you're going to your local library in very many instances, as I have discovered. So when we noticed that as librarians, some were forward thinking, some have been brought on board, but then of late, with the so many barriers to information, and then with the explosion of the internet, self-publishing and all that kind of thing, there's been this absolute hunger for knowledge, yeah? I don't know if they get it from education, but there's just been this hunger for knowledge. So we had our individual initiatives as librarians, but then when open access came in, when open access content came in through the Wikimedia Foundation, then we found that we were able to now come together as a collective and extend our practice in a field that we were well versed with, yeah? So you'll see initiatives like One Lib, One Ref. The illustrations you see here are purely in the English language, but there are language variations for everything that you see on this screen. Okay, I'm not so sure about Australia, but there is an initiative for that. So we have the flagship One Librarian, One Reference. When we talk about the decentralization, you'll find the Spanish-speaking world has its own, and then the African-speaking world has its own. Different languages have their own things, but even different user groups have their own thing. And then we have the OCLC Web Junctions Wikipedia and Libraries Better Together program. That's an education initiative. I think it catered mostly for librarians in North America, and then it was adapted for Mexico. So the Wikimedia Foundation projects were all there, but librarians didn't know how to use it, especially when it came to Wikipedia. So that was an initiative that was taken about. I will refrain from talking about Wikipedia in African libraries before I wax lyrical. And then there was also this very, very important or very interesting project that I had known about in Australia, the collaboration between Wikimedia Australia and the State Library of Queensland. That was, to me as an individual, it was one of those flagship things that up till now, I refer to their training manuals. But there have also been other initiatives by individuals. I've seen a lot of these, especially in Africa. And I would like to mention Ingrid Thompson at the University of Cape Town, who's been doing a lot of work with One Lib, One Ref. Then we also have Bukola James. Bukola, you can type the contributions. Otherwise, I'm not going to praise you on this platform. And then also university outreaches, where you find that it's librarians how can I say it, leading that or spearheading whatever efforts it is to reach out not just to their communities of practice, but also to the communities in which they reside. So this slide, I need to explain it just a little bit more. You see, when it comes to how librarians are dealing with education, especially in academia, very many people think that it's only academic libraries that are present because of the emphasis on research. But there are special libraries, there are public libraries, there are parliamentary libraries. I work in a special library personally. I work in a German library, and each of these have a certain way that they contribute to the ecosystem, and they're doing it through partnerships. But normally that partnership is struck because there's an interested information worker there. And it's a food chain. When you look at the sizes of the libraries, you find that at every one point, there's something that supersedes the others. So at the lowest level, you'll find that we have the users who consume the information in our local libraries, the academic libraries, the public libraries, community libraries, and they normally partner with their local Wikimedia associations to host things like editathons, to give us space, and also the members in there undertake individual training in Wikipedia courses where they are available. At times they expose themselves to it, or at times they are required to do that as a part of continuous professional development. And then most of these libraries fall under national or regional associations who can actually speak for them at a higher level. And at this point, what comes to mind is LIASA. That's the library, that's the umbrella body for librarians in South Africa. And every May they have a week that's dedicated to their activities. And for the last 6 years, there's not a time that they've not hosted a training workshop or even dedicated a day to speaking about Wikipedia. So it's a presentation, yeah, standard there, that there's always going to be something about Wikipedia. What have they done in relation to not just Wikipedia, but many of the Wikimedia projects. And then very many times in October, we have the Open Access Week, and it is a trend. If you notice, over the last 5 years, there's always going to be not just a mention or a passing mention, but there's always going to be something dedicated to any of the Wikimedia projects. Just this week, I think the Nigerian Library Association chapter in a certain state partnered with Wikimedia Deutschland to teach librarians more about Wikidata. But then all these national and regional associations also subscribe to umbrella associations. And at times, it's easier for librarians to heed the call, especially for education through umbrella associations, than they would as individuals. So this brings to mind the IFLA Wikidata Working Group. We also have African librarians who, I don't know if I'm ashamed or proud to say that most of them got involved because AFLIA, provided a continuous professional development opportunity. And most of these things are educational in value. They are not passive in nature. But when it comes to us educating ourselves about the Wikimedia movement, how we can actually get involved with it, or the opportunities available, there are some challenges that are universal. One thing that's not stated here is there's always a dearth of knowledge. And now we have this wave of new knowledge coming in droves. And most of us just don't have the competency to navigate this wave of knowledge. And I was saying before that I have information overload. Every day there's something new, and I realize that I don't know how to navigate it. And yet, to favorably participate in the open access movement, I'll need some sort of competence. It could be digital, it could be technical, it could even be just me reading, but there's a noted lack of competency to navigate this new wave of knowledge. And then we also tend to undermine ourselves because we have limited knowledge of the relevance of the work that we do in relation to the Wikimedia projects. I'm not saying you have to sit and reach and look for the relationship, but there's always going to be a relationship. And then this one, it's a problem as old as when Wikipedia started as the flagship project, and then it evolved into the different Wikimedia projects. There's that antagonistic relationship between librarians and Wikimedia. So the Wikimedia Foundation is more open to working with librarians than librarians are. We are very skeptical. We are the proverbial donkey being dragged to the well, but we eventually get to drink the water. And then there is the geopolitical and just socio-economic differences that make this universal application a challenge. When OCLC's Web Junction program took the Wikipedia plus libraries better together to Mexico, the challenges were very, very different. They found a very different landscape, very different practicing conditions for librarians. So the curriculum had to be changed. So that is just one example of the so many, but I'm glad to see that at least it's being adapted in various languages. But then it is not everything is lost when it comes to educating ourselves and improving our relationship with open access content. Academic libraries especially are providing materials to support different curricula, both for the Wikimedia movement as well as for the national development conversation. And then many libraries are supporting researchers on and off Wiki. Research is a part of education. It brings out new knowledge. And like I mentioned before, education prompts curiosity. Curiosity prompts research, and research prompts the search for something else altogether. And then libraries are now also providing more user education than before through library instruction. During my mom's time, I think it was a very simple thing as walking up to the information desk and going for the orientation week. But now you will find that there's just orientation for the physical building, how to use materials, how to go digital, how to apply them, how to use tools like Zotero and Catalog and all that kind of thing. And then libraries are also providing up-to-date technologies that are enabling us to access information. Some people are not able to actually access this content through mobile phones. Some people are not able to access this content because it's behind a paywall. So libraries have these subscriptions. They also have supercomputers. And like I mentioned before, because our job is to collect and process and disseminate, then we have the hardware to be able to provide access to the information that the myriad of Wikimedia projects will provide. And then we also have increasingly accessible resources from the Wikimedia Foundation that are helping us get out this information to the public. These resources are technical, they are technological, they are human. Laurie talked about a specific office for senior programs officer at the Wikimedia Foundation specifically for libraries. And this individual is going to be your first stop. yeah, they communicate your needs to the Wikimedia Foundation. The Wikimedia Foundation is also able to explain it well, and they are relatable to you. The Wikimedia Foundation is also sponsoring very many projects by librarians to educate their communities, to develop educational materials, and just to carry outreach activities, all in the name of education. And then something that people also neglect is most of these libraries are in the possession of very many information sources like books, historical documents, and photos, which are now being digitized and made available to the public through various Wikimedia projects. For example, Wikisource will deal with archival material, but it goes back to the Wikimedia Foundation, now becoming increasingly accessible, giving us, how can I say it, the resources to help us do the work that our traditional establishments are not able to offer us. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the extent to which I'm able to expound on the relationship between not Wikipedia, but Wikimedia, education, and libraries. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Laurie and Alice. Having two very distinguished and eloquent speakers on today's EduWiki Live is all in one, and it's something very amazing for me because I see them as my role model, and in fact, you are a very big inspiration to me, especially as it concerns some of the work that I do here in Nigeria. So thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. And yes, before I commence the question and answer from my own end, I don't know if we have any questions, Silash. Do we have any questions on the YouTube or the Facebook Live?
We do have a lot of questions, Laurie and Alice, and I see like the engagement on the YouTube chat. So thanks everyone who are participating on the chat. And I just also want to like thank you, Laurie and Alice, for like sharing your experiences and all the insights and highlights from different programs. We can see the role that Wikimedia movement plays in nurturing trust and countering mistrust. I'm aligning this in the for the occasion of Media and Information Literacy Week, so we can see like how much we are part of this. And I'm really excited. This is very interesting. There are some questions on YouTube chat. I think Abdullah has compiled them on Google Docs. So Clara, if you may want to like ask the first question. And while we have this Q&A round, you can still add your questions on the YouTube chat.
Unmuted. Okay, wait a moment. So there is a question for Laurie. Laurie, I'm curious to know how your involvement in the Wikimedia movement has changed the perspective of your colleagues that see you taking on these leadership roles. So this is the question.
Okay. Well, within my library, my colleagues here, there's very much different librarians do many different things. So that's a perception outside of librarianship that a lot of folks don't know how many different kinds of librarians there are. So I'm an instruction librarian, and now I think it's kind of become my thing, like, oh, Laurie's thing is Wikipedia. But I don't see it that way at all. And so I would love it if more folks got involved. So I keep encouraging, like, someone should get involved with Wikidata, because we do have data librarians. But they're definitely participating in events and asking me to do work with Wikipedia within my library. So a good example would be every year in my library, we have a in-service. So folks can attend a conference-like event when they themselves don't have the funding within their position to attend conferences. And this year I was asked to do 2 editathons focused on Oregon history during the librarian service. So that was staff coming, learning about Wikipedia, and adding information. So definitely, we had some great conversations within my library about Wikipedia and Wikimedia and what it means. Outside of my librarian colleagues in the US, or at least regionally, my hope is that folks are seeing Wikipedia as something that can help us fill gaps with history and knowledge within our different areas and different regions. And so I'm definitely getting feedback about that, and folks are asking questions.
Great start. Asking questions is the first step. As Alice said, something like this also, like curiosity. Thank you, Laurie. And Bukola, can you ask Alice? There's another question for Alice, the first one.
Okay, so my question for Alice would be that in the course of our presentation, she talked about how she offered a 2-unit course, Wikipedia and Equity, for students in our university. So I would like to know, like, what are some of those topics that were embedded in that course that you think was part of what has really improved students' media and information literacy skill and giving them better understanding of how they can use Wikipedia? Thank you.
How's that setting a hard paper on a Friday evening? All right, anyway, time to be serious. Yeah. So I will use Wikimedia and Wikipedia interchangeably because, like I mentioned, there are different projects that deal with the different facets of information. And that's why I keep saying that there's always something for everybody. Yeah. So first, it starts with just that question. You know, the first question you always get asked is, why are we here anyway? Yeah. So just to show or create that relationship that, okay, this is the work that you do. These are the projects that are available that relate to the work that you do. So creating and explaining or showing the relationship between the work that people are actually doing and then the Wikimedia Foundation information projects. Then the second thing is, now that they know why they are here and they can explain that relationship, how do they begin navigating and using this resource that it can be helpful to them, because they've probably come as the representatives of their community and their community is banking on them to be able to explain things to them that they also don't understand. So how do they navigate it? What are the things to look out for? What are the common traps? What are some of the ways in which they can help their community as well as themselves? Now that they know how they can navigate these resources, then how do you localize it for them? Because the way Laurie's librarians understand Wikipedia and its sister projects is very different from the way my librarians understand it. For a number of reasons. It could be that they understand it better when it's told to them in their local languages. Then at times they understand it better because they have examples that are locally relevant. Like, this is the thing that you see your community. Like, if you see it in your community, in our movement, this is how it is. But then away from that, you need to also empower your community to be able to, because they're not going to be with you forever. Yeah. And you're not teaching them that these things are going to be static in their head. the things that they do and the organizations they work with, I'm assuming they're libraries, they are growing organisms. We all know the fifth law of library science, yeah? So then how do you get them, one, to be of impact within their community, but then what are some of the things they can undertake? So you'll find that some are good administrators, some are better at teaching, others are good at mobilizing. So what are the ways in which they can be empowered to then make a contribution to their community? So this is why you're going to see some of them are the ones writing grants, some of them are the ones forming user groups. People like James are the ones teaching librarians how to use Wikipedia in the classes that they actually teach to their information literacy students. So there's something for everybody. You just have to bring it, you have to package it in a way that is uniform for everybody. And after you've given them the whole package, you can then give them the opportunity to find their way within the ecosystem.
Okay, thank you so much, Alice, for shedding more light on that question. And I believe you have been able to do some justice to the question. So I would also like to pass this over to Laurie. Laurie, yes, just a follow-up question to the first one. In your presentation, you made mention of having over 70 librarians being part of the first Wikimedia plus library meetup. And just part of my curiosity, like what Alice made mention of, that curiosity prompts research, right? So I just wanted to know, from those people that attended this conference, how have you been able to evaluate like their contributions based on what they have learned as being participants of this conference? Like, has there been anything new? Did anything change? These are some of the things I'm just curious to know about. Thank you.
That's a good question. The conference happened just 3 months ago, so I don't think much can change in 3 months. But if you look at the convention website, it's on Wikimedia, and part of the activities included tracking what was produced afterward, and there are at least 10, maybe more, blog posts and short articles about the event. And so in just that way, folks are sharing what they learned and maybe spreading the interest and excitement about Wikimedia projects. But also I know that several folks connected during the event and are moving forward with different activities and projects. So one example would be just this week, there was the Wikibase presentation from Wikimedia Deutschland or Germany. And was it that Nigerian libraries, or was it larger than that?
Yes, something state.
Yes. And it was huge. Sorry. Like 90 librarians participated.
Yeah. Also, the Senegalese librarians have been able to work with a gentleman who's in Wikifranca, that's Michael David Miller. So they've had a series of, it's an ongoing partnership. At least I know of 2 presentations that have happened.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Larry, for the response to my question. So just sorry that I'm asking too many questions. You just get very little time to meet with your role models on EduWiki Live. So,
what's up?
So I just want to ask those questions.
Yay.
So sorry that I'm asking this question. So I just want to ask, like, there have been so many recruitments and increase in participation of librarians to the Wiki community project. But there is also this problem of retention of editors. So like being an experienced editor, being an experienced facilitator that you have been, what are some of those steps that you think other editors other facilitators can do to improve retention of new editors? Thank you. I think that will be the last question. Then I'll pass it to Clara.
Well, I'll take it.
Oh
But
gosh.
I'll go first because I have the feeling Alice will have like a better answer. So we can have my like
No.
short, not good answer. And my short, not good answer is that creating editors and long-term editors is very minor on my list of goals. I know that's a huge goal of Wikimedia Foundation, but my main goal is to get students and other librarians and other educators to use Wikipedia and tell students it's okay and show them how to use it and tie all that back to information literacy. Because I do believe that I don't just believe it. I mean, I've seen it from the class that I teach. When students understand how Wikipedia works and actually engage in writing just one article, maybe they never write another one, they understand the web and sources and misinformation just on a whole nother level than they did before, and they engage in a great conversation and they're excited to talk about Wikipedia because I don't know about you and where you are, but in the US usually teachers tell them not to do it. It's changing, but up until they get to the university and when I talk to them they say, oh, teachers have said never use this. So just engaging in that deep learning helps them with information literacy. And I just, as a librarian, teaching librarian, that's the crux of what I do in my job. So it's the crux of what I do with Wikipedia.
So I'm not sure if I can have question now.
Wait, I thought maybe Alice would.
3 minutes. Okay.
No, I don't have a thesis, and there's really no formula, because you see, when we call people for training, the overarching emphasis is on editing and editing and editing, you know, produce content, but not everybody is interested in producing content, yeah? And even if they're interested in producing content, they might not just be interested in Wikipedia. There's another project that works for them, yeah? So one, I think the emphasis of training should not only be on editing, but we should also look at empowering them as individuals to leverage the things that they know that they can then use in the Wikimedia world. I don't even know when I became a mobilizer, but people tell me I'm a good mobilizer. So yeah, I still edit, yeah. And then we can also expound on the projects that relate to the work that they do, talking to them in the language that they understand. So if you're talking to metadata librarians, please do not begin bringing in things like Wikisource. Yes, they might be interested in them vaguely, but something like Wikidata would be more interesting for them. Then also, we lay a lot of responsibility on the foundation, but you see, if people are not interested, they are not interested. That's the equivalent of putting lipstick on and they would not want it. So also keeping in regular contact, yeah? If you are in regular contacts, you know, you have support groups like WhatsApp, where people now talk about the different things, different activities like this, but you just keep in touch with them, and sooner or later, somebody will then tell you, you know what? I heard about Wikisource and I'm actually interested in it. What is this? So that continuous education. Also, please, these short-term education projects, they need to stop. They should be at least around maybe 2 or 3 months, yeah, with a follow-up. Then lastly, there was a question I said, I don't know if you're going to ask it. Somebody asked me about the antagonistic relationship between Wikimedia and librarians. I know that person. Now, my person, let me ask. Before you did that course, what was your reputation? Or like, what did you think about Wikimedia? Yeah, there's this distrust. Most librarians think that Wikipedia especially is going to put them out of business, that it's not verifiable, that it is not a valid source. Academics are rubbishing it left, right, and center. Even people that we thought knew better are rubbishing it, but then they're entitled to that. At times it comes from a place of not knowing. So I would lay emphasis on education and research, as well as making tools that people that are relatable to reduce on that antagonism. I must say the Wikimedia Foundation has made itself very accessible. Now it is our responsibility as librarians to then exploit these opportunities for our benefit.
Thanks, Alice. I know, Clara, you have like one last question. We are right at the time. Do you wanna? Oh, you're muted. Sorry, Clara, you're muted.
If I can, but maybe we can also discuss it later somewhere. But it is interesting that you are in the academic level. You are dealing on the academic level, and like Wikimedia Foundation and also in Poland and many countries, we are trying to move Wikipedia into the classrooms, like on the lower levels of education. And for me, it's important because then those kids are going to your universities. So is it, for me, it's also important question that should academies more cooperate with primary schools and high schools, because this understanding of Wikipedia and fact checking and everything should have started even before then going to university. In Poland, we have something like academic classes in the high schools, but on the very few. But it's not connected with Wikipedia. We only know them because some universities have something like this for special schools. So this is only my thought that as longer I'm here in this movement, the more I'm thinking about this, that this should be some connection maybe emerge someday between academia and lower education. So maybe you have some experience about this. Oh yeah, Bukola wrote my question in more.
I'm sure Alice is going to say no more questions, Bukola.
No. It's okay. It's okay. We are at work when we provide information. Laurie can go first.
Well, like Clara has described, there's in the US a huge disconnect between higher education and K through 12. And even in this town in which I live, where we have this huge university and then the schools, there's not that much collaboration between the university and the K through 12. So it extends through and into libraries. But I have been asking recently, Salish and Melissa have heard me asking about reading Wikipedia in the classroom, and is anyone in the US doing it? So I know that at least one professor now, Matt Vetter, is working on that, but I think that's probably a question more that Salish and could answer, and Alice.
All right. I'll just expound on that. Normally, to get involved with these things, it's a matter of individual interest. Like I said, you cannot feign interest, you cannot force it, yeah? So how do those in the education sector, how do we collaborate with those in the education sector to improve the usability and readability of Wikipedia in the classroom? Please, the classroom is not these four walls. The classroom is also at home. The classroom is in Zoom also, yeah? So one, normally it is through technology. Technology could be analog, it could be digital, yeah? Very many times I've seen materials translated to the languages that people can actually understand. And it came from a concept that I saw with newspapers here, where they would have newspaper inserts, you know, with the school curriculum, but in a local language. So there is that. I also mentioned that libraries are providing access to the technologies that can help us access this information. You know, they have subscriptions so that we can access things behind paywalls. They have these supercomputers. They have instruction librarians that, yeah, Laurie, hi. They have instruction librarians that can explain some of these concepts to the public that they serve. And they can, this is something I also keep saying, that much as Wikipedia promotes access to research, well, some people say, don't do your research on Wikipedia. I say, do what you want. Do not like use it 100%, but it is a very good starting point for your research. So we can point out these resources, we can have intersectional technology, but we can also adapt it to ways that reach out to people in the language that they understand. The language is not like Luganda, but it could be in the kind of information that they understand or they are looking at. So we customize their experiences.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Laurie. We have passed 5 minutes, and I think, like, you know, we can still get more questions, answer them. I'm very excited of this session. I know no more questions, but I just want to like ask something that Clara did ask on the chat, which is, can she use this presentation and the materials in a course that she is working for educators and librarians in Poland?
Of course.
Yeah.
Awesome.
By all means.
Okay, it will be on WikiLearn, which is a Wikimedia Foundation platform. So it will be in Polish, but yeah, I will put this on the course in the chapter about libraries. So
Wonderful.
It's really a convenient time of our session today.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And to also let you know that this is not the only platform for you to engage with the education team or with the EduWiki community. We have regional meetings. We have more EduWiki Live coming up. There is affiliates meeting. You can also share your stories in the education newsletters. I always try to convince everyone that's a good place to connect with the global community, because every month we receive more than 300 views on the education newsletter. So it's a good way to share more about your work. And we have another EduWiki Live in December. So there'll be topic we'll be sharing soon. Thanks for the amazing moderators, Clara and Bukola, and for all the help, Emerald and Abdullah. We also had Fiona in the background today for supporting the session. And a huge thanks and hugs to Alice and Laurie. Thank you very much.
Sailesh, don't forget that you'll be at presenting about this at Wiki Indaba next week. So for the people going for Wiki Indaba, please.
Okay.
So I need to prepare myself for
Don't be so
By
relaxed.
force or by magic.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Friday, but you have to be, you know, focused all the time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks,
also.
everyone. Thanks,
You're
Emerald.
welcome.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.